What's up, bikers? Episode 214 of the Biker Bar Podcast. Man, I started reading what was on my screen and it almost came out of my mouth. That would have been silly. Anyways, today's guest is Bulls Bikes, and I'll tell you guys this right now. I'm kind of excited to have this conversation. I've seen their tent at Sea Otter for a couple years, and it's always like pretty substantial. And I don't know, whatever reason, sometimes you get a little intimidated. You're like, I don't know if I want to go over there. And this year I did, and I'm glad I did. So we're going to find out a little bit about Bulls Bikes, or a lot of it. And in the meantime, before we do that, I want to talk about some companies that have been supporting me. So as you guys know, I've been riding the RE bikes for the last year-ish, a little over a year. And lately I've been riding the hell out of my Delano Peak, which is their trail bike. So this is a 150, 140, or 130. You can kind of change the rear end if you want. Trail bike. And basically, I had to get back into the analog shape, and also my e-bike being broken right now really helps push that along. So anyways, if you're looking for a trail bike, this thing's been awesome. Honestly, it's a great pedaler. It reminds me a lot of my Tall Boy, but with just a little bit more suspension, so my back's a little happier. Outside of that, yeah, go over there, check out their site. They got some financing. They got a 28-day warranty, so if you are like money, ship it back to you warranty, not their lifetime warranty on the frame or whatever. But yeah, if you don't like it, you can just send it back to them. They don't care. So check them out. That's rebikes.com. So also Tasco, over at tascostoke.com, just released a new mullet jersey, but this is short sleeve. So I'm super stoked about this. All the ones that I've been talking about over the winter were long sleeve, and this one just came out, and I'm going to tell you right now, take a look at these designs. They're pretty loud. But like this one, if you're listening right now, is like a green and black checkerboard, kind of waving checkerboard, let's call it, on one side. And then on the other side is just a black jersey. So you can be loud as hell with the neon green, or you can just be normal with just a little neon green Tasco logos. A couple different designs. Go over there and check them out. TascoStoke.com. Use code B1KER and save yourself a little money. Anyways, also Cali has been a long time supporter of the channel. I've been wearing their helmets for years, and they have this new purple and pink kind of design coming out. I'm holding back on reaching out to them and telling them to send me this, because I do have a soft spot for pink, hot pink, and I don't know where it came from over the last couple of years, but it's been a thing. Anyways, the Maya is not an expensive helmet. It's only $100, but if you use my code B1Cali30, you can get 30% off. So that's do the math, $70 for honestly what's my favorite helmet. So I have access to basically anything, but this is the one that I grabbed the most. It's just super comfortable. It's a solid helmet. I also like it for the way that the top of it is. So if you're night riding or something like that, it's real easy to stick one of the sticky mounts to it or whatever. So it's a great helmet, and it's cheap. So swing by CaliProtectives.com, check it out. Last but not least, I've been doing this EMTB fundraiser. I'm trying to raise money for veterans out there in our area to come to this nonprofit and ride some e-bikes to get into mountain biking or be able to participate in some of our monthly rides. The guy that's running this nonprofit doesn't have a fleet, and after last summer's event, I really recognized how much it would help vets to get a little fleet of e-bikes. So what we're trying to do is raise enough money for one in each size, and so far we're doing pretty good, but we're not even halfway there yet. So go swing by my channel and check out the Disconnect to Reconnect video that I did a couple videos ago, or you can check out their website at dr2vets.com and set up a monthly thing if you want. It's only, you could set up for $5 a month, and it's just like give up one Starbucks and help some veterans out. That'd be awesome. Or do a one-time thing. If you have a company that does donations and you know about that, definitely reach out to me or swing by the website and see what we can do by reaching out to Casey, the founder. But we've had a couple of companies reach out, and they're definitely, their pockets are bigger than us regular folks. So yeah, if you work for a place and you know they do nonprofit donations or things of that nature, hit us up. It'll help. It'll be awesome. And then you'll be able to, once we hit that goal, you won't have to hear this segment anymore. Anyways, let's bring these guys on. There's actually two of them today. And let's talk about bikes. So we got Brandon and we have Rob. Just so people get acquainted with the voices, Rob, can you say hello and let us know what your title is, what you do over there?
Sure. Rob Kaplan. I'm the head of sales and marketing at Bulls Bikes USA. And Bulls Bikes USA handles sales of Bulls electric product in the Americas.
All right. And then we have Brandon.
Yeah, my name's Brandon. I am the marketing coordinator for Bulls Bikes USA.
Right on, man. So let's just hit it. What is Bulls Bikes? Because honestly, it's not a brand that most people walk into a bike shop and are familiar with seeing.
Yeah, great question. So Bulls is a German brand. It is owned by a co-op of over 1,000 German and Austrian bicycle retailers called ZEG or ZEG in Euro speak. And it's a performance brand that has just a fantastic reputation. It's definitely one of the biggest brands in Germany and one of the bigger brands in Europe. And we are the US and America's distributor for the brand. So we have pretty small distribution here in the US. We're working hard to increase that. But people that sell our bikes love them. People that ride our bikes love them even more. And that's one of the things that drew me to the company, and one of the things that is helping us grow our presence in the U.S. I heard you during the opening about how you see us at Sea Otter, and I'll just share a personal story. So I've been in the bike business my whole career, and I became aware of Bulls about 10 years ago when I was selling a competing e-bike brand, and they were my biggest competitor overnight. And we became friendly competitors, the CEO and I. And I was fortunate enough to join the team about a year and a half ago. And I can tell you that for a long time industry guy, the company is really focused on making sure that our customers are ecstatic about our bikes. The bikes are German engineered, which from my experience means that they're going to be really nicely kitted. All the detail is done really well. We can talk about some of that. And we offer just a really amazing value for the dollar these days. I heard your comment about your EMTB is broken, and I also heard you talking about the e-bike fundraiser, EMTB fundraiser, and we should talk offline about both of those things, Robert. I might be able to help you out a little bit.
Yeah,
we don't have deep pockets; we've got small pockets, but both of those things are near and dear to my heart.
Right. Where are you guys at? Where's your location here in the US?
Company's located in Linwood, California, just about 10 miles east of Los Angeles Airport.
Oh, okay. So you guys are down in Southern California.
Yeah.
Right on. How's the weather down there right now?
I'm in Northern California, so I'll have to let Brandon answer that one.
The weather is sweet. I am in Long Beach, so I spent my lunch break actually shooting one of our new Iconics along the bike path in Long Beach. So,
nice.
Pretty good down here.
That sounds fun. Where are you at, Rob, in Northern California?
I'm currently in South Lake Tahoe.
Oh, nice. That works out really well.
Yeah, not a terrible place. Yeah.
I was just up there over the weekend, and oh God, I missed it.
Are you located in Northern California, Robert?
Yeah, I'm in Sacramento. So basically I'll spend the winter building trails down this side of the hill, and then as soon as the snow melts enough to come up there, I spend as much time as I can up there, because obviously the riding's better, but so is the weather. So
yeah, I agree.
Plus the real kicker, let's be honest, the real reason why I go to Tahoe every winter or every summer is to get away from Poison Oak. That's really it.
Yeah, the Sacramento Valley is well known for the oak, and the riding in Tahoe is pretty epic. Very fortunate.
Yeah. So Rob said that he's been in the industry for a while. Brandon, are you as well in the long time bike industry, or this kind of new for you? Or
I have touched pretty much every aspect of bikes. I started about 15 years ago as a bike messenger in downtown LA, worked my way through bike shops, worked for all of the larger letter corporations, and then found a really nice like family vibe that speaks to me as a writer as well as a creative individual here with Bulls. And I also had a long relationship with Bulls before my putting my hand into this workflow, and it felt very friendly. It felt very natural to be here. My background is in photojournalism, and I've been a painter most of my life. So bikes was a lifestyle choice. So to be able to have all of those things come together very naturally, I feel super blessed. And I feel very at home at Bulls. I get to talk about and participate in a lifestyle that I would on my own.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Right on. Well, what is it that, like, why is it that Bulls decides to like try to get into the American, sector? I mean, honestly, European bikes, let's just say historically, like they're not super huge over here, but they also have, like, I know, for instance, Europe really like open arms with the e-bikes and stuff like that compared to over here. So it's just interesting to me, like what made the Bulls decide to, kind of start trying to shoot for the American market.
Yeah, that's a great question. The owners of our company, it's a family-owned business, and it's a husband and wife team that had some exposure to the brand on the manufacturing side, and were able to secure the distribution originally in Ecuador, where they were from, and had such success that the parent company, ZEG, in Europe, asked them to expand their distribution into the Americas at large. And they picked up and moved to Los Angeles and opened a business about 10 years ago. And it's a pretty interesting group of people, as Brandon was saying. We're a small team. Having worked in the bike industry, I've worked for big companies, small companies. This is definitely a very small family oriented business, something that also resonated with me. And it's the owners are passionate about e-bikes. The husband is actually a really pretty capable rider and consistently uh, makes people go, wow, they didn't expect that just from his riding capabilities. And the whole company lives, breathes, and eats e-bikes, and really loves, as Brandon was saying, the lifestyle, the category. I've been in the e-bike space myself for over 20 years, and it felt very natural to me as well. And it's really a nice group of people, and the way they look at the business, it's rider first, and great value and great relations with our supporting retailers, ultimately supporting our consumers.
Yeah. So that people know, you guys are only e-bikes, or do you have any regular analog bikes too?
So in the Americas, we only sell and support e-bikes. Bulls,
Mm-hmm.
in the parent company, the mothership, as we say in Germany, does sell what I call acoustic bikes.
Okay.
But I will also say that, as you probably know, that the bike business in Europe, specifically in Germany, is so heavily weighted towards e-bike, especially in the current environment. I mean, going back 10 years, they were still selling way more analog or acoustic bikes. Now, e-bikes as a percentage of sales in Europe in general are way over 50%. And as a
I would
percentage of
imagine the same
dollars,
goes. I would imagine the same goes here in the States.
not yet, not yet.
It's got to be
We're
close
still.
though.
No, I can tell you for a fact that
Yeah.
e-bike sales in the U.S. are still it's less than 25% of U.S. bike units, and about 40 some percent of bike dollars. So we're getting there, but there still are a lot of uh, acoustic, inexpensive bikes being sold. What we are seeing is that e-bikes have really changed the sales landscape for specialty retailers,
Mm-hmm.
for independent bike shops, because that's where most people would go for a higher quality bike to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where a consumer can get good information, get a test ride, really experience what an e-bike can do for you, and really it opens their eyes to those possibilities and opens their minds to spending, $1,500 to $15,000 on an e-bike versus, the average selling price of an acoustic bike in the US is still well less than $500. It's probably closer to $200 or $300 these days, just because of the volume sold in the mass channel. If you talk about specialty retail, it's much different, obviously.
Are you guys only sold through distributors, or do you do direct to consumer as well, or?
We have a direct consumer website, www.bullsbikesusa.com, and we do sell to consumers. We only will ship a bike and deliver the bike through a retailer, though. We will not ship a bike to a consumer in a box. There are some companies that do that. We all feel strongly that the best consumer experience is getting the bike built, set up, adjusted, accessorized, etc., by a dealer. So if we don't have a stocking dealer in that area, we actually will find the dealer to do the assembly and pay that dealer an assembly fee. So we have a very sort of dealer centric distribution strategy. We sell only through specialty retailers. We don't sell through the online retailers only, or the larger mass retailers.
So what you're trying to say is like you wouldn't see it in like a REI or a Target or something like that.
Yeah,
but basically
Target
like,
for sure. I got to give
shop.
REI. I got to give REI their due. They do a pretty good job, but we don't sell to them. But
Yeah.
but
Like, I
Target,
would if they're
Walmart,
listening.
Amazon, etc. We'll only sell through either a bike shop or an e-bike shop. That's our general distribution. And what, like I said, when we sell to a consumer on our website, we ship the bike to the shop. We pay the shop to assemble it. All of that behind the scenes. All the consumer knows is they're getting a great bike at a great deal, and they're getting it delivered and and fully assembled and tuned up by a professional bicycle retailer, which again, from our perspective, is really critical to the ultimate enjoyment of that ride.
Yeah. Does that help you build relationship with new shops because of that?
Yeah, that's part of the idea for sure. The bicycle industry these days is being bombarded by sales channels that are sort of outside of their norm, outside of their purview. There's a lot of direct consumer brands. I'm not saying anything negative about them. Our company and I personally feel pretty strongly that consumers are going to get a better experience when they have a bike from a bike shop, and that's our strategy, and we're very vocal about it out within the bike industry. And it definitely helps. It spurs loyalty amongst those retailers that we work with. I will say that we have a relatively low number of retailers, but the retailers that sell our bikes sell quite a few. They hit above their weight, if you will, and they're pretty passionate and happy with the brand.
Are you guys pretty much in every state, or
just about?
Like,
I mean,
primarily West Coast or something like that?
Oh no, we're across the country. We've got retail in the Northeast and the Southeast and the Upper Midwest and the Southwest and the Pacific Northwest and the Rockies. We're definitely cross country. We also sell a lot of bikes in Canada. We have some very, very good retailers in the Toronto market and in British Columbia and Calgary and Edmonton and Vancouver area. But we have, again, if you look at the number of retailers, Brandon mentioned the letter companies. There's some larger bike brands that they have thousands of retailers. We have hundreds. That's just that's where we are. We don't aspire to have thousands. We'd like to have more than we have today, but we don't aspire to be that. We don't need to be that big to service our consumers really well and have a very healthy business.
You mentioned earlier that the company is owned by a couple, so I would imagine that it's probably an interesting story of how they started the business.
Well, they started it when they were living in Ecuador,
Uh-huh.
and they became
Hence
aware.
the distribution there, huh?
That's right. That's right. And they the husband is of Spanish descent,
Oh,
and was living in Ecuador. They met while they were at university, and they started this business, and they've grown it, like I said, to be a pretty significant business here in the States. And they've provided a good living for a bunch of people for a while, and they provide a great product for a bunch of consumers. So I have a lot of respect for that. They started from nothing, and really through their entrepreneurial spirit and their passion for e-bikes and for the brand in particular, they've grown the business to be a pretty significant presence in the North American e-bike market.
yeah, you guys have a little bit of everything too. So it's not just like e-mountain. So you have a couple of different um, genres, I guess you could say. So you have the mountain bike, you have the road bike, you have kind of more like a city type of situation, a hardtail. What's this other one say? Something e-speed or something like that.
Yeah,
What's that?
we've got. So I like to say that we play in the EMTB category, the pavement category, and the road gravel category. And
Mm-hmm.
we have a few different um, classes or families of bikes. So the Copperhead family is our EMTBs, and within Copperhead we have hardtails, both diamond, sort of traditional, what we would used to call men's frames, as well as wave or low step frames. Again, we used to call them women's frames, but now you don't do that because a lot of guys, especially guys my age, are riding those bikes. Um, and the Copperhead full suspension bikes, which is the bikes that you have on the screen, the all mountain series. We have those are 150 travel mullet style, and that's definitely our most popular genre of EMTB. The AM1 is that's our bread and butter bargain basement, just an amazing value at $2,600 for a
Mm-hmm.
Bosch CX 750 watt hour smart system bike with decent spec. And then the AM3 for $1,000 more gives you a really nice spec package: XT brakes, four pot XT derailleurs, four pot brakes, really high end Sun Tour suspension components.
Mm-hmm.
Again, all at a very, very competitive price. Those are two bread and butter bikes for us that we do very well with. Some of the other bikes are a little bit there's just some different bikes. If you go to the EMTB hardtail next, I'll show you um, the Copperhead Wave, which is that top bike in the middle. That's a very unique bike. It's a low step EMTB hardtail that really is a very capable off-road bike. Nobody else that I know of makes this bike. Before I joined this company, I was always chasing this bike because again, it's very unique, but it suits the needs of a lot of consumers. When you think about who's buying EMTB, if they just want to go and ride sort of multi-track gravel places like that, not hardcore, single track getting big air. This is just a great bike for, again, a very reasonable entry point at $25.99. There's another model called the Copperhead Evo 2 Wave HD, which if you scroll down, you'll see it. That bike there is very unique as well. It's the same bike as the previous one, but it's got some reinforcements in it, uses thicker stanchions and thicker rims to give you a heavier weight capacity. We weight rate this bike to 330 pounds. So it really, again, it's a very capable bike for somebody that just wants to, ride around, isn't going to be getting big air, but wants a real capable hardtail. And that's what
Yeah,
this
yeah.
bike is. So those are just some very unique bikes that we do quite well with. We also have that 24E, which is on the top left. Again, very unique bike. We tend to play in what I would call white spaces, both from a product specific perspective. There's not many 24-inch fully capable hardtail EMTBs. This one at $1,500 is just an amazing value. And then the hardtail low step bikes are another place that companies just don't make that bike in the US. And as a
Yeah.
result, we give consumers a different option that, maybe they can't get from other brands. So it's a good category for us. We get constant positive reinforcement from our consumers and our dealers. And those are some highlights on the Copperhead series. The other series that I like to talk about is the Iconics. Those are our pavement bikes,
Mhm.
and those bikes come in, again, in a variety of configurations. We have, just a basic Iconic diamond or wave frame, which is like you know, essentially it's a recreational pavement bike. But the
Are you
nice
talking
thing
about
about,
what you have on your trekking?
yeah, if you go to the
Um,
trekking tab, that's
got it.
right. The Iconic Wave is a again a bread and butter bike for us. If you scroll down a little bit, you can see it right down there in the center. That bike right there in the center. That's just
But
a
also a
great.
step through bike.
What's that?
Also a step through bike for
That's right.
people that are
That's right.
listening.
We saw a lot of step throughs, especially in recreational categories. This bike comes again with the Bosch CX motor, the biggest motor that
Yeah.
Bosch sells. Great value. It also has a dropper
Is the CX
suspension post.
that's not their newest motor? That's like the
No, this
last
is this is not the newest
example.
one that just came out with the upgrade. These bikes,
Uh-huh.
because you can see that they're all on sale, and we probably ought to address that, Robert. Thanks for bringing it up. These bikes were all purchased during the pandemic when you couldn't get bikes, and
Mhm.
just like almost every other bike company in the world, we bought too many, and they were delivered late because everyone was running late at that point. They are smart systems, so they are the newest system. But the release that Bosch just announced a couple of weeks ago, that's on a motor that they've only been shipping at the manufacturing level for the last 6 months. So
Yeah.
really, they're just starting to trickle out into the field. There's, I would say, 1,000-fold more of the motor that we're selling, which is the Gen 4 Bosch CX motor, and it's a great motor. They're durable and powerful. The only difference really is that they've done some changes to the internals to make it a little bit quieter, and they've
Mhm.
given it the ability to take this upgrade, which
Yeah.
they again recently announced. So
Which I personally don't know how much that matters. Like I know how much it matters to like people that like looking at numbers, but as a person who rides an e-bike pretty regularly, like I don't really ever feel like I need more power. Like
yeah,
realistically, what I heard whenever they like let's say like when DJI, oh man, DJI,
DJI, yeah,
yeah, it's so nice to say G instead of J. And I feel like they did that like as a joke to America or something like that. But if you notice, like almost everybody online says DJI with the
yep,
G sound.
yep,
But anyways, I digress. But like when they released that motor, to me, I wasn't like I didn't really give a crap about it being so much more stronger. The first thing that came to my mind is, oh, I can ride a lot longer. So like if I'm
that's right.
staying in eco, this battery is going to be way more like this thing's going to be way more efficient. I think that's what it really comes down to. So I mean, it's really easy to get caught up in the latest and the greatest, and the fact that you guys still have the CX motor. I mean, it's not. I mean, there's other brands that are doing the same thing. I mean, Pivot's in the same boat as you guys, and that's more of a high end boutique brand. So I think it's really interesting how many bikes that you guys have in this kind of like less than hardcore space, and I think that realistically in today's environment, us guys that are really, really into mountain biking find it hard to like place ourselves in the place of like the rest of America. And there's a definitely a need for the bikes that you're talking about, like without a doubt. And what it made me think about when you were talking about the step through mountain bike, it just made me think about when mountain bikes first came out in the 90s and everybody went from riding a 10 speed to everybody's like, oh, I need a mountain bike. And they would buy this mountain bike that had, let's just say, knobby tires and whatever. But realistically, what they were doing at the most was like maybe riding down this dirt path that went over to the park or something like that. And and looking at what you guys are selling, you're meeting a lot of that market. A lot of the people that like, hey, I want an e-bike so I can get to work a little faster. But along the way, there's this, dirt section that I'm going to get on, and I definitely want some suspension, but I don't want some crappy suspension, So, and I think that what you're doing there is probably speaking to a lot more people than the small group of us that are only looking at the high end bikes.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on a really important topic, not only in terms of our bikes, but in terms of the bike industry at large. And again, having been in the business for a while, the best thing about the bike industry is that we're passion driven, but that also tends to make us a little intimidating to the casual cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that we really, as a company, and I think I've always leaned into, is to try to make the products that we're selling accessible and try to have as big a tent as possible for not only the bike shop but for the consumer. I think that there are a lot of people who are very passionate about off-road riding or pavement riding or whatever kind of riding, and you're right, our brand may not be their first choice because we're not the newest, sexiest, whatever. But what we do offer is an accessible price point, an accessible entry point for new riders, for casual riders, even for performance riders that can't afford to spend, five
Yeah.
or eight or $15,000 on a bike. There's a lot of people who just can't afford that.
Yeah,
So
no, and I think that that's something that I personally lose sight of because of I'm one of those like, I like the latest and greatest kind of stuff,
yeah,
and
yeah,
and I'm also at a point in my career where things are a lot easier than they used to be. The kids aren't in the house anymore, and so I definitely look at that, and also then kind of working in the space. I'm not paying full retail,
that's right.
So it becomes like you start to get a little bit like bias isn't the word I'm looking for, or jaded, but like I don't necessarily look at things the same way I did 10 years ago whenever I didn't work in the industry,
Yep,
and it's
yep.
really easy to forget that, dude, these things are really expensive. There was a time when I first started this channel where I remember like I didn't have carbon wheels. And I remember thinking, man, if I could get a set of carbon wheels, that would be like the sickest thing ever. I would be so stoked. I also was riding one bike, and now it's like, okay, the other day I found a set of carbon wheels in my garage that I forgot I had. Like it's pathetic. It's like, oh my God, I forgot I had this set of wheels. And it's like,
N
okay,
plus one on carbon wheels is really a sickness.
right. But at the end of the day, there are a lot of people that are either just getting into it, or I think the other thing that you hit on that makes a lot of sense to me is casual. And that is really that's such a great way to explain it, because there are a ton of people out there that ride mountain bikes, let's say once a month, once every other month, maybe once every 3 to 6 months. And I've completely changed the way that I tell people like what to buy compared to what I did a year ago before I started riding e-bikes. And now that I've had experience on an e-bike and I kind of understand what the differences are, any bias that I had before, which I didn't think I had any, but I would have still told people like, oh, if you're going to ride every once in a while, buy an analog bike, it's cheaper, yada, yada, yada. But after riding e-bikes now, it's like, if you're only riding once in a while, you should 100% buy an e-bike, because it will make it fun. And that's really, if you're only riding once in a while, you're riding for fun. You're
That's
not
right.
riding to get in shape every 3 months,
That's right.
if you
right.
are, you're not gonna, it's not gonna happen, so, but with
And
the
the great
e-bike,
thing is
go
we
ahead.
now have data that shows that people that buy e-bikes actually ride them more on
Yeah.
average than people who are buying and riding acoustic bikes. There's actually been studies about this. Bosch has funded some, People for Bikes has funded some. And it is pretty interesting that, e-bikes really do sort of level the playing field. I tell people that riding my e-bike makes my legs feel like they're 20 years old, which for an old guy is a pretty cool experience.
Yeah.
And, that's the thing about making bicycles and using bicycles for different things, whether it's riding off-road, riding for transportation, car replacement, recreation. An e-bike can open up all those different avenues to somebody that maybe didn't think about bicycling that way, because bicycling can be hard, especially in certain environments and as you get a little bit older.
Yeah, I think what I was getting at was, at the end of the day, if you're only doing something every once in a while, you don't want to spend 5, 8, 10, at this point, even $15,000 to buy an e-bike. And it's really easy to walk into a shop and get that like new car vibe where you're like, I need it. But at the end of the day, like having things that are in that price conscious range are exactly what we need, A, as an industry, and B, like as people, like to go out and be able to spend $3,000 to get a capable mountain bike that will get you out on the trails and get you riding every once in a while is like way more reasonable than I mean, most of the other like more boutique brands, like their bottom of the line bike is like $6,000 to $7,000.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
We talk about, in the e-bike space, there's really been this sort of stratification between the what I call direct consumer brands that sell primarily online. They are advertised through social media and on TV, and their primary sales channel is direct consumer. I don't want to speak to who they are, but I think most people that are watching your show understand that. And then there's the bike shop brands. And those are the brands that, like you were saying, to get a capable e-bike from one of those brands, certainly the letter brands that Brandon used to work for, you're talking about $4,000 to $5,000 just to get in the door. And what we've been able to do with our product, because again, we bought too much and we have to sell it, is we're giving consumers a way to sort of bridge the gap between those direct consumer brands that usually sell for $1,500 to $2,000, maybe 25, and the big boys that start at 45 or 5. Because as you can see from our website, our bikes really are 25.99 to 4 and 4,500. That's the price that we live, and that's where we think we can really help consumers get quality, a Bosch drive system, German engineering, quality bike shop component bikes that are assembled and serviced by a local bike shop. That's a pretty unique experience for most entry level buyers. And for us to be able to accomplish that, I think, our goal is to get more people on a quality e-bike. And that's really, our whole strategy these days. And I think to your point, that will allow the people that are riding more casually, less often, or that just can't afford it. And I think there's a lot of people that are watching your show that maybe they ride the really high-end boutique brand, but their friends or family members don't have that kind of passion or bank account. And this way, those people could buy a quality e-bike and go for a ride with the people that are your audience.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty of people in my audience just as well that are riding, the other bikes as well. Just because, like, at the end of the day, I mean, the slogan of my channel is "It only takes a bike to be a biker," and that's that, and I mean that by like truly mean that. And I would hate for anybody to feel like they're less of a person or a biker because they have a bike that they bought at Walmart or a bike that
absolutely
didn't cost $15,000. Because at the end of the day, and I've said that a couple of times already, but I mean, I just feel like it's the right thing to say right now. But it's when I've ridden a $15,000 bike and I've ridden a $700 hardtail, when I finish the ride, I don't come off that ride any less or more happy, depending on like what bike I rode. Like I'm just stoked that I rode a bike on and I had fun.
Yep.
And the more money you spend, they're yeah, it does make some things better, or it does like make things maybe a little reacting better or something like that. But some of that stuff took years for me to be able to even notice. You know, it
100%.
wasn't like I if I was to just start mountain biking today and you put me on a bike that had a Suntour fork and you put me on a bike that had a Fox fork, I may not be able to tell you really truly the difference. You know what I mean? I'm definitely not going to be able to tell you like, oh, this one has rebound control. I know what that does. You know, like
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that that's the difference, and that's what enables us to hit those price points. But you're right; it doesn't have the brand, and that's a deal killer for some people. But I think there's even more people, the maybe the 5% versus the 95% that say, I just want a capable bike that I can
yeah,
ride, have fun with. I know it's a quality product, and I want to get out there and have fun. And the good news is when they get a quality product and they have a good time their first ride, it does encourage them to ride more.
yeah,
So, by getting somebody on a quality Bosch equipped center drive bike that's got decent components, chances are they're going to actually enjoy it more and they're going to ride more as
yeah.
opposed to buying a bike that's maybe a little bit less money but doesn't have that same ride feel, that same sort of engineering that makes it perform a certain way. And that
Mhm.
nuance you do feel. I think your comment about the $15,000 bike, I certainly couldn't tell, but there's people that can tell. But I think the gap between the $1,000 or $1,500 bike and the 25 or $3,000 bike, that's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going from something that you would pick up at, let's just say Walmart, because they're easy to pick on, to like something like what you guys are selling, there's definitely a
Yeah,
considerable difference there.
yeah, that's right.
And
That's right.
and there's a huge market in that zone though. And I think that's one of the things that people that ride the higher end bikes tend to forget. I
Yep.
mean, some of the most popular YouTube channels about cycling are guys that do like budget bike
Oh
reviews.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
And their channels are huge.
Yep.
And it's because there's a ton of people, like you said, that just either don't want to spend that kind of money or can't spend that kind of money on a bike. And they're going out and they're buying maybe like Chinese frames and building them up, or they're you know looking for a brand like Bulls, and then they're all talking about how they can upgrade it. And I would imagine that um your bike has all of the regular standards
Yeah,
that
that's right.
sets people up for that path. And
That's
when you
right.
already have like when you're talking about an analog bike, you want good bones. So you want a decent frame that has good um like drawing a blank for the word geometry. And so like, but when you're talking about an e-bike, you can't upgrade your motor later. So if you're getting a decent frame that has a good motor in it, like what you guys are selling, you're really setting them up for like a long-term use.
That's exactly right. The AM1, that 2599 150 travel mullet, that's one of our best sellers. That bike has the same frame and motor that our 45 and $5,000 bikes use. So the only difference is the wheels, the brakes, the gears, the suspension, but all that stuff. And to be honest, you could buy that bike and ride the living daylights out of it, beat those components to death, replace them, and still be under what you would spend for one of those, boutique brand bikes.
Mhm.
So again, we feel really passionately about it. I
Yeah.
I've always taken the attitude that any butt on a bike is a good rider, right? I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
your slogan about it takes a bike to be a rider, right? That's that really is the bottom line. And I think anything we can do as an industry to get more people riding bikes for any reason whatsoever, that's good. I'm good with that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that I was remembering my younger years of purchasing when I definitely didn't have the kind of income that I have now. And I distinctively remember buying a particular bike and being one of the things that made me buy that bike was because it was the same frame that their top of the line bike had.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew that as I rode bikes that I was going to break stuff. I
That's
knew
right.
it. There's no doubt about it, you know. And I also knew it's like something about bikes. It comes with a case of upgrade-itis. So like you buy one and then you're like instantly like, what can I change? You know, and it doesn't matter how much you spend. So those of you guys that are thinking to yourself, if I get that $10,000 bike, you won't need to ever buy anything. It's a lie because it just doesn't work that
I
way.
think it actually gets worse the more you spend to begin with, because
God,
the idea of customization when you're spending a little bit more becomes either
yeah.
more appealing or more accessible, one or the other.
Yeah, but like I was saying though, is like that was one of the things though that always made me really stoked about that bike was I knew that I could always go back and look at the spec sheet of their top of the line one, and I could slowly get myself to there, you
That's
know,
right.
and then maybe by the time you get there, things in your life change, or and if they don't, it doesn't matter. You still got a great bike. So, yeah, it's definitely it's a market that I have to remind myself about because I get so centered in you know whether it's carbon or it's this, you know, for all intents and purposes, like the suspension on my bike in some cases is more than most people, like a lot of people's bikes. You know what I mean?
You're in the fortunate position of now being in the industry. So as you said, you're
Yeah,
either testing product or getting product at a deal, and that's a pretty rarefied air. And
yeah,
I think most bike shop employees live in that realm as well. So what I was saying earlier is that sort of creates an environment where if if you're riding that and that's all you know in your day to day, it's really easy to say, well, that's what you need to your consumers. But
yeah,
what you don't realize is that the vast majority of consumers don't need that to
yeah,
enjoy the heck out of themselves. And most probably can't afford that, especially in the current economic environment. And by saying that, a lot of bike shops will sort of, again, it gets a little intimidating. So we really, and we talk to our retailers about this all the time, is making the bikes and the brand accessible and speaking to the consumer in a way that is, more inviting and big tent. We don't care how many times you ride it. We don't care what you do with it. We just want you on a bike.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely it's a good perspective, that's for sure. Brandon, you haven't had much to say here in a little
Sorry, I've
while. I feel
dominated.
like you just what do you think about whenever you're doing the marketing for Bulls? What is the thing that kind of draws your attention?
First of all, I don't do a lot of talking. I let the marketing work do my talking. But I try and speak to myself for the most part. A bicycle is a quality of life tool, and it solves a lot of problems. And again, like it raises the quality of life. So being able to pick a bike, like you said, that has the same frame, has the same motor. I started the same way. And I think it was a blessing in my case because I didn't know what I didn't know yet.
Yeah,
And maybe if I'd have spent $10,000, I'd have spent that $10,000 differently down the line. Um, so I try and think like the rider and every stage of rider I've been. I've been
hmm,
in plenty of shops where I got to get that really top of the line fancy thing. Um, but it's kind of a pain to daily a Lambo, you know? And there's something to be said about a clunker. So somewhere in between is really where I found myself, and the conversations and the writing style that I like to live. Um, the Copperhead HD is kind of my quiver killer of an example. I commute on it. It did just get a really awesome upgrade that gives Eco Plus mode 113 or so miles of range. It's over 100 miles in Eco Plus, and I'm doing that on a bike packing rig. So being able to have that adventure in the first place is what I'm after. And I think a lot of our riders are after that too. The daily life is an adventure, and being able to throw it on the back of the car and continue the adventure while they grow as a rider and as they see fit is something I try to take into account. Our dealer network is also really active. So there's a lot of demo days, and it's not just Sea Otter. Like we have something like that, like at least on a monthly basis, sometimes multiple weekends throughout the country. So being able to speak a large message, you know, think globally, act locally, and be able to resonate with each type of rider in each specific community is really something I strive to get across. Not all of our bikes apply to every single person. That's why we offer such unique models in the first place.
Yeah. I think the that market too of the commuter-ish e-bike is something that is growing. And I say that because I noticed it at work. You know, years ago when I live about, let's just say 15 miles from work. So I decided at one point, I was like, I'm going to start riding bike to work just so I can drink more beer. Because I was like, if I ride an hour to work and an hour back, that's like how many calories that means I can drink some more beer and then I'm not going to get fatter. So I start doing that. Right. And, people are like, I can't believe you ride your bike that far, you know? And to me, I was already a cyclist anyway. So it didn't really seem like that big of a deal to me. And, you know, as you would talk to people, they would just be like, yeah, that's nuts. I would never do that. But with e-bikes coming out, you're really starting to notice like people that I would have never even thought considering it. Because the price of gas right now is just ridiculous. So is the price of e-car. So that like kind of prices that out too. And it's like, hey, you know what? I can get this e-bike and I can ride this to work. That, like, let's say they were riding the same commute as me. And it's really kind of effortless at that point. You're not really breaking a sweat. You might even be going faster than you would in traffic because I'm sitting on the causeway in the traffic jam and they're just like zipping by me, you know. So it's almost a wash on the time. It's just the effort, you know, and you have to kind of like juggle little things with, you know, how do I get to work and not look all disheveled or whatever. But lots of offices have gyms in them or showers and stuff like that. But like I said, I mean, it's so effortless as far as like you may not even be breaking a sweat, you know. And so you're starting to really see people that would have never even been considered. I guess what I'm saying is if my cyclist friends started telling me, hey, I'm going to ride to work, I wouldn't be surprised. It'd be like, oh yeah, you're already a cyclist. Like it's not much of a leap, just like it wasn't for me. But it's people that you didn't even know they owned a bike. And all of a sudden they're rolling up this e-bike and they're like, yeah, I rode 25 miles into the office today. And you're like, what? You know?
That's the holy grail that we're all going for is more people on bicycles for transportation and out of their cars. And you know, you think about traffic in Northern California or in the LA market or in lots of markets around the country. It's a real issue, and an e-bike is a solution for so many things. You know, dependence on foreign energy and obesity and overweight and you know lack of healthy lifestyle. An e-bike just it helps solve a lot of those issues. So, you know, as Brandon was saying, he lives that lifestyle probably more so than I do because I don't ride as much as he does. But you know, you got to like lean into that. And our goal is to see more casual riders, you know, more people like you said, Robert, that you don't even think they're riding a bike, and all of a sudden they show up and on their e-bike at work and go, oh yeah, we got rid of we're down to one car, right? We see that a lot these days. We're down to one car and we got an e-bike for our other car. To me, when I hear those things, I go, okay, so slowly but surely we're sort of marching towards that bicycle centric society that everybody thinks about when they think about the Netherlands, right?
Yeah.
That's that's like the Holy Grail, or Davis, California. That's the other place.
Yeah. That's funny. That's actually where I work. So
I had a feeling when I heard you saying you were going to go across the causeway, I
yeah.
immediately connected that. And Davis is as close to the Netherlands as we ever will get in
Yeah, but
terms of
even like
bicycle society.
because I live in let's just say downtown Sacramento for people that aren't from the area, and just even around town, I see more people riding cargo bikes to go get
Yep.
their groceries,
Yeah.
like to go down to the coffee shop. It is definitely something has changed. And, there's a small part of me that really wants to attribute that to those jump bike companies that
Yeah,
like
that's right.
just blanketed the US.
That's
And I
right.
think what it did was it initially like kind of gamified getting a bike. So it was like, oh, we're drunk at the bar, we're gonna jump on this bike, and it's super fun. Oh my god, this is great. Or it's like not even drunk at the bar. It's like, hey, I don't want to walk the 6 blocks. I guess we could rent this bike that's right here, and then getting on it and seeing how fun it was, and then maybe how effortless it was, and then they start thinking, maybe I should get one of those. Like what, like instead of renting one, like I could just buy one, and that's where the bikes that are in your price range are, I'm sure, like knocking it out of the park.
That's 100% right. And the bike share, which is what you were talking about, definitely has exposed tons of consumers to what an e-bike can do. The other thing that's really helped is infrastructure. And that's something that, the national advocacy groups and the state Cal Bike and People for Bikes and those organizations have really leaned into. And that's the thing that average citizens that are riders can help with. You can go and go to a town council meeting and talk to the mayor, because the mayor controls how roads are maintained in that town. And that's the thing that's really gratifying to somebody who's been in the business for so long, is the growth in infrastructure and the focus on safe routes and safe infrastructure. We have a long way to go, don't get me wrong, but the fact that there's a conversation now about it is really encouraging. And e-bikes are part of that conversation. Bike share is part of that conversation. What you were talking about, places of work that have a gym or shower, locker room facilities, those are part of the conversation. It's just that getting people to think about, I can get places and do things with a bike, whereas in the past, when I was growing up, when I was a younger adult, cars were it. Cycling was a sport. When I was growing up, cycling was freedom in the 60s and 70s. But
Yeah.
then as an adult, cycling became a sport and a fitness thing. And now as I get older, cycling becomes more recreation and transportation. So there is sort of a full circle, if you will, of
Mhm.
how I personally have seen bicycling and how I think a lot of Americans have seen cycling.
Yeah, yeah. You touched on earlier, about having the bike for a long period of time. What's the warranty look like at Bulls?
Bulls has a 5-year warranty on the frame. The components are warranted by the individual manufacturers. The Bosch system that we sell is warranted by Bosch. They've got, without a doubt, the best customer service and warranty in the e-bike space, bar none. And that's a 2-year warranty from the date of sale to the consumer. Just something else I'll say about Bosch. There was a survey that's done every year by the National Bicycle Dealers Association, a nationwide group of dealers who try to make things better for the industry. And they surveyed dealers on what brand provided the best experience and service and support from an e-bike drive system. And every year for the last 2 years, they've done this survey. They just sent it out again. I just got the email today. And each year for the last 2 years, Bosch has come out on top in each of the 6 categories that they measure. So they really do have the best reputation amongst the bicycle industry. They have the biggest market share in Europe. Bosch is a German company that everybody knows. They make great appliances and great power tools and lots of automotive components. They're the company that actually invented and developed ABS. They invented and have continued to develop autonomous driving. So they really are a technology company. An interesting fact that a lot of people don't know, the Bosch drive system that we use today, the origins were that it was used as a power steering unit in a BMW 5 Series car in Germany.
No, that's interesting.
That was the pre-Gen 1 Bosch system. They took a power steering unit, they modified it, and they mounted it on a bike to make a drive system. Obviously, now they've gone, generations past that, but Bosch really is a technology company, and that's why they're able to produce the product that they do.
I think for people that don't ride e-bikes, whenever people start talking about motors, you kind of just gloss over because you're
That's
like,
right.
I don't know what the hell that means. I know I did that myself, 6 months ago when I didn't have an e-bike. But I think for those of you that are listening, what Rob just said isn't bullshit. It's Bosch is hands down the best motor in the industry right now. And the way that you can see that is all the brands are switching to Bosch right now. If they didn't have a Bosch motor before, they're switching to a Bosch, and there's a few of them that are doing their own thing here and there, but the majority of the e-bikes in the market are switching to Bosch motors. So the fact that you guys are running Bosch on there, I'm sure probably lends its hand a little bit to being out of Germany as well, but hey, it's also the best motor out there. And I think with that, the key part or another thing to keep in mind is you could maybe get another bike that's a low cost mountain bike that is by another brand that's a similar price, but it's not going to necessarily have that motor in it. And when you take a motor to the bike shop that is familiar with that motor already, you're going to be doing a lot better than this maybe other bike that you found that has some off-brand kind of motor in it, and you're going to be really up a creek trying to service it.
Yeah, that's a really important point. There are over 2,000 service centers across the country that are what they call Bosch certified, and you can take a Bosch equipped bike to any Bosch service center throughout the country, and they can service it no problem at all. They just plug it into the computer. The computer tells them what's going on. If there's a fault, they clear it through the computer. It's really quite a remarkable system. And because they have such big share, and because it's the same system that we sell that other brands sell, it's really easy for bike shops to service the Bosch motor of any Bosch equipped bike. So that's a really nice thing if you're traveling, if you don't know where you're going to be. There's Bosch service centers in every corner of America. It's a very easy system to get service. Not that the other stuff is bad. We were talking about how great Bosch is. I want to make sure I say this. There's a lot of good systems out there. We sell Bosch. We're passionate about the quality that they offer. And I think when a consumer rides both or rides a variety of systems, they can feel the difference.
Yeah, definitely. I want to address something that's on the homepage of your website. As soon as you hit the website, it's a big old sign that says tariffs just ahead. So obviously the state of things here in the U.S. and the tariffs has definitely got the bike industry in a little bit of a pickle. How's that affecting you guys, and what should people expect?
Yeah, great question. There is a lot of buzz and a lot of swirl around tariffs. Our bikes are produced in Vietnam. And because of that, about 3 weeks ago, we thought we were going to have a 46% increase. Not as bad as China, which is 145% tariff. We're currently in the 90-day pause window, which means that we're only subject to a 10% tariff. We're going to take some prices of some bikes up on June 1st. It will not be the entire range. We have product that we own in the US. Obviously, we bought that at pre-tariff prices, but we also have a lot of product that we're still receiving shipments on from the factory on a regular monthly basis. And those bikes are going to come at a higher price, and we're going to have to take the price up a little bit. I would say to your listeners that it's a great time to be a consumer. Our bikes will remain a great value in the market comparing them to other brands. But if you want to buy at today's amazing prices, I would say the month of May is a great time to buy a bike.
Yeah, yeah. So you're projecting on your site the beginning of June is when everything's going to change for you.
Yeah, we're gonna have a small increase. Again, it's not it's not going to be a huge increase, but it's our prices are going up by 10%. So I mean, we're selling these bikes at little or no profit. In some cases, we might be losing a couple dollars just because we have a lot of bikes in stock and we need to sell them. So we don't have the wiggle room to absorb a higher cost. We have to pass something along to the consumer, but we're going to be very surgical about it. It's not going to affect every bike. It's not going to be a 10% increase at retail, because a 10% increase on our cost of goods does not translate to a 10% increase at retail. And there are some brands that are taking their prices up by 10%. They're doing what they want to do, but we're going to try to be transparent and make sure that we think about how it
Can you
affects our
explain
consumers.
how that works? Like
Sure.
why would your 10% not affect the retail?
Well, if you think about the cost of goods of a bike, if a bike costs $2,000 at retail, it didn't cost $2,000 when we bought that bike shipping it out of Vietnam. It cost something less than $2,000.
Right.
And then we have a small
So
margin.
just for the
that we
sake
make.
of the conversation, to keep it simple, let's just say it cost $1,000 for you guys.
Let's say it cost $1,000. So that means that our costs went up by 10% on $1,000, which is $100, not 10% on $2,000. Okay.
Right.
So for us to cover that increase, we would then increase our price to $1,100, which would then cascade to a higher price to the retailer. They have a margin on nobody's getting fat and happy with these bikes. The bike industry is not a place to get wealthy. I will say that. We do it because we love the lifestyle, right? And we love bicycles. But again, I think it's important to talk about that, because there are some companies that are saying on May 1st, June 1st, whatever it is, we're taking a 10% increase because of the tariffs. I'm not saying that they're being disingenuous. I'm saying that increase is not all caused by the tariff.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of that is probably like trying to make up for what went wrong for the last 2 years or something like that.
I think there's a healthy bit of that as well, because the bike industry has been definitely a money losing operation for the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. I really think it's really A, good for the consumer, and B, interesting how you're working with the local bike shops to have the bikes built and put together. And I think that like, it makes me feel warm inside, like I think that in my business sense of a mind, I'm like, oh, this is an easy way to start like marketing yourself and your bikes to these shops and to maybe get a better penetration that way. But on the other hand, like, it really is setting up a person with a good experience, like, without a doubt, and a lot of people that are buying, bikes in this price range maybe aren't a great mechanic, or maybe don't. Like, I watch people when I go into the bike shop, I go in because it's like some like obscure thing that I just can't do. Like, for instance, my e-bike in there, I went in knowing that more than likely the motor is going to get replaced, right? But I see people walk in right behind me that have nice bikes, and they're like, "Can you change this tire?" And either they don't know how, or they can't be bothered with it, and I think that setting somebody up with that experience with their bike shop from day one, it really like pulls that barrier down. So it's like they're not going into the bike shop to get like, oh, they're gonna charge me this or that or whatever. It's like, hey, here's your bike, it's put together, this is everything, and yeah, if you want to buy something, here's all these things, I can recommend to you or whatever. So it really like helps them out. But I just really like that idea of really setting the customer up that way, right out the gate. And I think that's something that maybe, some of these other direct to consumer brands should really start considering, because at the end of the day, they need to rely on those bike shops for anything that's going to be warranty wise. It's not like some of the problems that I've had that I'm not going to ship my bike back to Ari and then they're going to work on it and they're going to send it back to me. I'm going to go to a bike shop where I'm going to work on it myself. Right. And there's a lot of people that are not in the I want to work on it myself zone. You know,
it's easy for us because we're in the space. I grew up in a bike shop. I started working on bikes when I was in my teens. Brandon did the same thing. That's all we've ever known. So for us, a bike shop is a comfort zone. It's a safe zone. It's where we believe that the consumer is going to get best served to have their best riding experience. There's nothing wrong with direct consumer. I think that there's a business there, and there's reasons that brands sell direct consumer. There's reasons that consumers want to buy direct from a brand. We try to bridge that and have the best of both worlds. If somebody wants to buy from us as the brand, they can do that. But we just feel like the consumer is going to best be served and have the best riding experience ultimately if they're aligned with a local bike shop. Because, look, in the bike industry, we've talked about this for decades. There's roughly 5,000 or 6,000 bike shops in America. And that number's been pretty constant for the last 30 years or so. It goes up a little bit, it comes down a bit. Shops open, shops close. But if you think about retail in America, there's very few industries where there's that many specialty retailers still. There certainly isn't that for shoes. There certainly isn't that for a lot of other things you buy. Bicycles, to work on, maintain, tune up a bicycle, it's a skill. And it's a skill that people don't really understand until their bike doesn't work or until they learn that skill. But a properly tuned, properly assembled bike gives you head and tails a better riding experience than an improperly tuned and assembled bike. And that's why bicycle retail continues to thrive in a retail environment that really specialty retail in general is, I would say, under duress. There's not many things that you buy at a mom and pop things store. These days, you buy your things at box stores. Again, choice and lots of stuff and value. That's all. Box stores do great with that. Same thing with direct consumer and online. They do great with choice and value and breadth of offerings. But if you're looking for something that requires some sort of skill to make it work well, bicycles is one of those things that still when you get on a bicycle that's properly assembled and tuned up, it feels better. It just does.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I watched this video the other day that the owner of Worldwide Cyclery did, and he was talking about, when he started the business that, selling parts was online was like they were the bad guys because they weren't at the bike shop, and then and now that business actually isn't as much of a moneymaker for them as it is their own brands, which is like their Trail One components or their Kettle clothing. And it just really made me think about there is this kind of like moment in time with the bike industry that things are kind of all over the place. And I think it'll obviously the dust will settle, but I've even noticed it over the last, few years of how it's even settled in my own way, where there was a period of time where I bought everything online because it was like, that's the best price, period. But there is definitely a time where it's like, you might go online and talk to whoever online about what tires to buy or watch some YouTuber talk about it. But when you go to the bike shop and those guys like ride the same trails as you and they'll give you an advice that's like specific to you geographically, and you build that relationship, then you start walking in and you're like, I don't care that this is like 10% more because I know like they're going to help me, here or there. It's going to work out in the wash, 100%. And so maybe I might save some money buying those parts from Amazon, but if I buy them here, like there's that other time where I'll come in and they'll be like, don't worry about it.
That's
and
exactly
right.
Yeah.
And I think, it's really interesting to see that like even how I buy, it's like, what things do I buy direct to consumer? What things do I buy like from the shop? What things do I buy from Amazon? And there's definitely some like unwritten list in my head of which things I go where for. And
Yeah.
and it's interesting seeing how it all kind of plays out.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you guys excited about with I'm sure you're working on some new stuff. I'm sure you're gonna I would imagine, is there, other than the hard, or I'm sorry, other than the acoustic bike that you guys sell in Europe, is there a wider product range there that maybe goes
Oh
higher
yeah.
end, or
Yeah, there's a full portfolio of e-bike as well as acoustic bike, much higher end, because we're a small company and we have, just like a lot of things, limited resources. We have this
Mhm,
overstock, and we are selling down on the overstock. We have a couple
mhm,
of new pavement bikes that will arrive in about 30 days that we're pretty excited about. There's
mhm.
a new Iconic S, which is a class 3 pavement bike that's more of a go anywhere, do anything. And then there's a Crosslight S, which is got a 700C wheel and more of a commute style bike, also class 3. Those are the first two
So
of the
what
new
people,
bikes.
that aren't e-bike in the know, class 3 is above the 20 miles an hour. I think that's 28 miles an hour,
That's
but
right.
it's
Class
still assist.
class 1 is 20 mile an hour pedal assist. Class 2 is 20 mile an hour throttle. Class 3 is 28 mile an hour pedal assist. So these are our new bikes. They're class 3, which is a growing category. We're really excited about them. Those are the first new bikes that we'll receive in about a year and a half. And as we start selling down on some of this overstock inventory, especially on the mountain bikes, we'll start bringing in some new mountain bikes, most likely first quarter of next year of 26. Right now, we're trying to figure out what specifically that looks like. There are some high-end bikes that are marketed and sold by Bulls in Europe. There's a bike called the VUCA, which is a pretty interesting bike. It's a belt drive bike that uses an internal gearbox made by Pinion with an
Mhm.
MGU drive system. It's a pretty slick system. I
I'm
rode it
glad you
last
just
year.
mentioned that. Let's go down this rabbit hole
Well,
because
so I'll go down the rabbit hole, but I'm going to preface it by saying it won't be available in the US until at the earliest mid-year 26 for a
uh-huh.
few different reasons. The first reason is in Europe, it's still oversold. And until they catch up with demand in Europe, they're not going to do what's necessary for us to sell and support it in the US. And what's necessary for us to sell and support in the US is that we need to get a battery and charger that is UL certified, because that's a US regulation that we're not going to, all of our bikes are UL certified. We think it's really important from a safety perspective that we adhere to those standards. So that's something that has to be engineered. All the pieces are in place, but they have to do some final engineering. They have to get the test. They have to certify it. So that's one thing. The other thing is in Europe, Pedelec, which is a standard pedal assist bike, goes 25 kph or 15 miles an hour top speed. And in the US, we have a 20 mile an hour top speed on class 1. So they have to do some engineering, some programming to make the bike go 20 miles an hour. And that's,
Mhm.
again, it's not a huge lift, but it needs to be done. The
Mhm.
biggest thing that we're holding on, besides the UL and catching up on demand, is that we want to make sure that before we bring a bike to the US that's not Bosch, that we have to service and support, that we have all of the pieces necessary to do that seamlessly here in the US. We've been doing this long enough that we understand that when you sell an e-bike, things can go wrong, and they can throw a fault code and you can have a challenge. That's just
Yeah.
part of the deal. What separates the successful companies and brands from those that are a little bit less successful is how you deal with those things when they pop up. We were just talking about Bosch. The reason Bosch has the reputation they have is because, well, the bikes don't break, number one, but if they ever do, they fix them quick. You can get it fixed and sorted really painlessly. And we are committed at Bulls Bikes USA to making sure that when we bring the VUCA to the US, if there's a problem, we don't have to go back to the mothership in Germany and ask them for help. We want to make sure we can help our dealer and our consumer here in the US in real time and not have to have a 24-hour lag because it's at night and we're in the afternoon here. So there's a few things that have to happen, but we're working on it. Been having active conversations since they launched the bike last year. It'll be here, but it's going to be a little bit of time. My suggestion is don't wait on the VUCA. Buy a bike now, whether it's our bike or anybody's bike, and enjoy yourself because there's always going to be something new. That's for sure.
So first of all, I'd like to say that it totally makes sense that you guys would start selling your lower end offerings in a new market to start out, because that's just going to be way easier of a market to penetrate than like going bat to bat or going up to bat against like the big well-known brands. So totally makes sense. Come over, kind of get your name well known or get your name known and set up your distribution, figure things out that way, and then start introducing some of the other stuff. When you're talking about bringing that, you guys have this Pinion bike over there, is Pinion on an e-bike a standard that is starting to be seen more regularly in Europe, or is that or was Bulls kind of like on the fringe?
Well, Bulls was the pioneer, and ZEG actually did a lot of the engineering on the first of these bikes. But that system has become quite popular on the high end. It's now being used on EMTB. It's also being used on pavement and commute bikes. So the system is, I would say, it's got pretty good penetration. It's getting great reviews in Europe. Like I said, I had the fortune to ride it last year at Eurobike, and it's a pretty fun product. It's like if you've ever driven a car with paddle shifters, that's the closest analogy that I can make. You hit a button and it just goes right into gear.
The Pinion, I've ridden the Pinion in the past, the zeroed Pinion, so the an acoustic bike. And to me, once I rode that the first time, it just was like a light bulb in my mind where it makes zero sense that we have this derailleur that's kind of hanging off towards the ground in a sport that we're riding through rocks on the ground, in tight spaces and stuff like that. And so for a long time, it's kind of been like, I'm always rooting for Pinion to kind of become something, and I feel like I'm an IT guy. That's my day job. And so like, I feel like Pinion is kind of like the Linux of the operating system world. It's like, Microsoft, everybody knows Microsoft but Linux is back there like, hey man, I'm actually a little better. But, anyways, so, I think though, when I saw e-bikes coming out, it's like one of the things that people always would complain about in terms of opinion is the weight, and, with an e-bike, all of a sudden that means like nothing, at least in my eyes, it does, and I'm sure there's some people that maybe feel a little differently, but the significance in weight, like to me, it's a logical step to go from, hey, let's drop the derailleur and let's put a Pinion motor into this so that your electronic shifting and everything is all being handled right here and all plugged into the battery and not some other system that you have to think about charging or, kind of like, I think the simpler that you can make something, the better. And it just seems to make more and more sense. And once they came out with their shifting that was not the grip shifts. Like at that point, I was like, this has got to be like the thing that makes it pop.
I'll say that derailleurs have been around for a long time. They do a great job for what they do. There's been a lot of innovation and improvement and such, especially in the last handful of years. They're not going away anytime soon. I think the Pinion or the VUCA is a unique product that offers a unique set of benefits and features to a rider that's looking for them. I think there's enough demand in the market for lots of everything, but I love the innovation. I love the idea that ZEG is sort of pushing the envelope on that innovation. It makes me feel fortunate that I'm with Bulls and that that we'll have the opportunity to bring a bike like that to the US someday. Um, it's hard sometimes to hold yourself back from that enthusiasm, but we really try from a business perspective to focus on what's in front of us in the here
Yeah,
and
yeah,
now. Having been in the e-bike space for so long, I can tell you, and the bike business in general, we do a really good job of selling vaporware, stuff that's not going to be available for a while. The bike
right,
industry in general does that. And I've just, as I've gotten a little bit older in my career, I've really sort of leaned into consumers shouldn't wait. They need to buy. They should, if they're looking to buy a bike, they should buy a bike and ride it, because there's always going to be something new down the pipe. Whether
yeah,
it's
100%.
Pinion, whether it's Bosch new CX, whether it's SX, whether it's DJI, all there's always going to be something new. So I think
Hmm.
that if you're an enthusiast, there's always going to be something you want that's new. That's the upgrade that you were talking about.
Yeah,
Whether it's a derailleur or a new drive system, including a new frame. um, and I think the important thing for riders to know is, ride what you can ride today, and keep your eye on the market. And as your skills improve, as your wallet improves, as you look for new products, then look in that moment to what's available, and try not to hold off on buying because you're waiting for something that's not yet available, because that sets off a cascade of effects that puts you as a rider in a not great position. You're sort of holding off
yeah.
because something's not going to be available in a near enough time for you to enjoy it.
Yeah, and I mean, I even had this conversation with a friend of mine just a few months ago who was, waiting to pull the trigger on an e-bike. He's got a, couple of analog bikes already, definitely, well into the cycling, um, in the sport, and he was like, "Man, maybe I should wait just a couple of months. I know there's some things that are coming out and it's like, dude, there's always going to be something. Like if you wait a couple of months, you're going to get the one that you knew was coming out or that you anticipated was coming out. But like a week before that one comes out, somebody else is going to release something else that's going to be 6 months out. And then you're going to
That's
be
right.
like, oh man, I need to wait another 6 months. It's
That's
like, dude,
right. That's right.
just buy it right now and go have fun. And then you'll be able to like make your decision later,
That's right.
and
Yep.
on your next buy. And
Yep.
it's really tough, as a consumer. You always want to get the latest and greatest or the best deal or whatever. And I think that what you said there is really has a lot of meaning of it's really best to just go out and get to it already and not
Yeah.
like be waiting, because
Yeah.
that's the real part is you're trying to do this whether for fitness or for like mental well-being or like that's more important to do now than to wait for some new technology or something like that that's really more than likely going to be nominal in your experience, like what I was
That's
talking
right.
about earlier.
Yep.
When I bought that bottom of the line bike that had the frame that I could upgrade over time, I had an awesome time riding that one with the bottom of the line parts.
Yeah.
And I had an awesome time riding that bike by the end of it with the top of the line parts. And it really didn't matter,
Yep.
that where I
Yeah.
was in that spectrum, whether it was at the beginning of that or the end of that.
Yeah, I'm sure you've talked about this in other episodes, and I'm sure your listeners know this. It's a really good time to be a bike buyer these days. I
Yeah.
can tell
Yeah.
you that, I've been in this business a long time, as you can probably see from my gray hair. The deals that are available in the market, not just from Bulls, but across the board, we have great deals. But it's the best time to be a bike buyer that I've seen in my almost 50 years in the bike business. The deal, because of the overstock caused by the pandemic, the supply chain cascades down, and the bikes that we're selling now, again, they were purchased right at the tail end of that when everybody thought that the demand was going to continue, and then demand started slowing down a little bit. Economy gets a little bit tight. Interest rates go up. All of a sudden, people are a little bit more worried about their wallets. It's a great time to be a buyer just because there's so much inventory from every brand out there that there are great deals. The other thing I'll say is that in the current environment where everybody's worried about what's going to happen with the economy, a lot of people are pulling back on vacations and on big spends. And if you think about it, staycation is, I think, going to become another buzzword in the next handful of months. And
Yeah.
a couple of e-bikes can be a great staycation investment. You can really enjoy them, and they pay off dividends down the road because you can use them for transportation. You can use them to get healthy. You can use them for years and years of riding enjoyment, but it really does. You think about the money you spend on a really nice summer vacation with you and the family versus buying a couple of e-bikes. It's a pretty interesting conversation when you start thinking about how much you can enjoy yourself and what that purchase can do for your household economics
Yeah.
in the current sort of uncertainty that I'll say the country is currently in, or the
Yeah.
world is currently in.
Great time to buy a bike. Lousy time to sell one right now.
Exactly.
If you have
That's
anything
right.
in your garage that you were holding on to and you're like, yeah, now's the time to no, do not sell it
No,
right now. Just
no,
keep
there's a
it.
lot of bikes on the market these days. No question. No question.
Oh man. I was thinking about selling my hardtail recently, and then I started looking at some of the other prices. I'm like, I'm not doing that. I'd
Yeah.
rather just watch it freaking dwindle down to nothing. And then I'm like, hey, no, I'm not gonna ever get rid of it because it doesn't make any sense.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah. So you guys also have some e-road on your site as
Yep.
well. You have an e-road
Yep.
bike.
Yep. The
What's the
Desert
draw there?
Falcon.
How do you think of that more in terms of somebody that's getting into maybe road riding and maybe wants to like keep up with the powerhouse team, or what's your
That bike is targeted at me. So I
yeah
used to ride my road bike a lot, and I don't because it's hard. But that bike gets me out riding with people younger than I am, people that have more time to ride. It's a really high performance bike that's got all the bells and whistles, wireless shifting, hydraulic brakes. Again, it's a class 3 bike, and the price at $4,000 is pretty much amazing for a bike with a top of the line Bosch system. So,
So that's a
what
class 3, so that would go 28,
that's
which
right.
was one of the things that I was going to ask you about, because I did a video on a e-road bike, gravelish bike, commuter bike, whatever you want to call it, a while ago, and that was one of my takeaways was when I was comparing it to my times on my analog bike. It didn't really like play out to be much better because I could actually go over 20 on my analog bike easily, but whenever that motor would cut out,
Yeah.
realistically, like, yeah, I could have kept pedaling harder than that, but mentally it would be like, I'm not going to do that, it
Yeah.
just it's so much harder, and so that being at 28, then I think that really that's kind of a game changer, and the
It
rules are,
is.
there's not like as much, there may be like speed limits posted on some like trails that are paved or whatever like that, but the actual enforcement of that is next to nil,
That's right. That's right.
so
The other nice thing
I
about the
don't feel like
desert,
it's as much of a problem as you would see in the mountain bike industry, where like a brand like Specialized coming out with that bike that'll now do 28. I think it's kind of a little bit, I'm curious what that does, because that it's already like a sensitive subject with trails and e-bikes, so that could be bad. But on the road side, oh man, it's perfect, because then it's like, oh, okay, well now this is different,
that's right. That's right. There's no real speed limit unless you're on a recreational path, like in California they call them class 1 bike paths. Sometimes
Yeah,
there's a speed limit on those, but if you're riding on a road, and I think about it in your market or up here in Tahoe, there's beautiful road riding, and a class 3 bike will allow you to ride and keep up with other cyclists, and almost as importantly, keep up at a speed that cars will give you a little bit more consideration.
yeah,
The other nice thing about the Desert Falcon is that it can be equipped with gravel tires. We've put 45C gravel tires on that bike. Turns into a really fun sort of levy bike in your market,
yeah,
or fire road bike where you're not getting air, so you don't have to worry about suspension, but you still want to go off road where you don't have to worry about traffic. There's tons and tons of fire roads. Certainly in the Sierras, we're very
What kind of
fortunate.
range do you see on that bike?
Oh, so the nice thing about Bosch systems is that if you use the power wisely, the range they actually have we have on our website a range finder where you can put in your weight and the riding terrain, et cetera. But depending on whether you're riding in eco mode, which is the least amount of assistance, versus turbo, which is the most amount of assistance, the range can be anywhere from, on the low side, maybe 30 miles, and on the high side, more than 100 miles. So you can go on some pretty epic rides on any Bosch system. I think we have a video of one of our influencers, Brandon, who Trent, right? Didn't he
Yep.
take one of our copperheads and did a range test? Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. Yeah, with the Bosch system, the Desert Falcon, to transition, the Desert Falcon is a really cool bike. It blurs the line of a lot of things. Being able to keep up in traffic. I do run mine with 40C tires, and it has seen airtime. It's a super capable bike. All of our bikes, I shoot, personally speaking, for 1-to-1 rides in turbo mode. So like I put it to the full power and I rip the knob off like Spinal Tap, crank it to 11 and just run it. And 1-to-1 rides is a very, very common practice for me. 40 miles, 4,000 feet on any of our bikes. And when I mentioned the HD earlier, like that happens fully loaded with camping gear. Like doing the whole entire Catalina Island trail system without taking a charger is a real possibility. Range anxiety stays at home. And that's kudos to the Bosch system. Now, obviously, we're pairing it with like awesome Shimano components that give you 300% range, low range to maximize that. But the smart system, Bosch Smart System in particular, you can go into the Companion Flow app and tell it these points of interest. Tell it this is my home base. Tell it I have intention to get to this place, and ensure that you get there under pedal assisted power. So you don't have to worry about it. Not to mention, like our Copperhead series, to continue on the example, is 750 watt hours. That's a monster. Just ride wherever you want to,
too,
man. Just ride wherever you want to. Like I commute on the TRs, ride it on and off road. But to circle back and talk about Trent's work, I have a buddy, Trent. He has an awesome YouTube channel. And he rides bikes. He and I have been riding bikes and camping and playing drones, and we both work in marketing. And so we've meshed all these things together. Trent is a bigger dude, and he likes to go bike camping, so he rides our HD. He's personalized
what's his YouTube? What's his YouTube channel?
Trent Sigurd is his name. And yeah, he's done a bunch of cool things. Range tests, fully loaded on our bike. He lives in Utah. So it's not a straight line on a flat surface. Dude is doing real riding on both paved and unpaved surfaces. And he goes really nicely into the analytics. He makes things very digestible and understandable, but, we'll also drop in an overlay of his phone so that you can see the peak performance of the motor, see the actual mileage that he's getting out of the bike. The HD has been really cool, but those Bosch systems, it's called the Smart System for a reason. The more you ride it, the better it gets. And you build a nice product around that. You just match that level of reliability and power and use with everything else that's connected to it. And anybody can go do these rides. Desert Falcon is an awesome blur of a line. Our TR series, full suspension, like pavement bikes that I jump off curbs and go downstairs and ride on dirt. And it's because I know that the spec, including that Bosch system, is going to just keep going. As long as I keep pedaling, it's going to keep going.
Yeah. It's definitely an interesting line of bikes, and I think that's really cool that you can put the gravel tires on it too, because to me, that's where, like in my mind, road biking is really just, it's a fitness thing. It's like running, it's like you just want to go out and get your cardio or whatever, and it's a very efficient way to do it right out your door. And but in my mind, it's and this is my own bias. There's lots of people that don't agree with me, but I just don't think it's fun, you know. But I do it. I do it all the time, you know, and just because it's like I said, all the reasons I said. So, but on the other hand, having the gravel tires to be able to be on a bike, like whenever anybody nowadays talks to me about potentially getting a road bike, if they're not like a serious cyclist already, I'm going to tell them, like every time, get a gravel bike, because it really just opens up a lot more opportunity for you. And I think that idea of it with the pedal assist is just, as soon as I started thinking about it, I was like, oh man, I could do this, I could do this, I could go there. Like it just really starts it it opens up a lot of opportunities. I've done a ride here recently or not recently, like I think last fall, from my house up to Folsom, and part of that was gravel, and then or part of that was paved, and then the other part of it was like I was actually on single track. And at a certain point, if I had a battery, like I really could have turned that into, instead of like a 65-mile loop, I could have turned that into like an 80-mile loop or something, you know, and just been like really epic, but then spend a lot of time in single track instead of the majority of the time in the gravel or on the paved road. So yeah, it just sounds like I think that gravel market is really, and I don't know what the numbers look like from the sales perspective, but I feel like that's probably the most promising like bike design that's out right now.
It's definitely a growth category in the bike business. It's a little slow on the e-bike side, I will say, but
Yeah.
again, we think there's something pretty unique there. I keep talking about this white space area that we like to play in, offering products that other brands don't offer, that sort of fill a need from a consumer perspective. And I think, you know, a gravel slash road bike that has pedal assist really, you know, it, unless you're getting air, is sort of the best of both worlds. You know, if you're riding fire roads, if you're riding gravel, if you're riding pavement, if you're riding levee roads in the Sacramento area, there's just miles and miles of epic rides where you don't have to worry about traffic ever.
Yeah.
And that's, as a cyclist, that's pretty cool. Not having to worry about any traffic at all except other cyclists. It is a pretty cool situation. And you know, a gravel slash road pedal assist bike, if you're into that, if you're into that riding position, and if you're
Yeah.
not, a bike like the Copperhead, like Brandon was saying, or the iconic TR series, which is our full suspension pavement bikes, those can give you the same type of experience in a flat bar situation with a little bit more sort of cushioning and suspension if you do hit any sort of bumps.
Man, I would imagine that your road gravel bike that you have, it wouldn't be too hard to convert that into a flat bar system.
Yeah.
What do they call that? Like Monster or something?
Monster
like
Cross, baby.
Monster Cross. Yeah.
Yeah, so I do have a Desert Falcon that's 650 by almost 2 inches. I do have a Monster Cross Desert Falcon. It still has its trot bars. But in my opinion, all bikes are gravel bikes. You want to go ride off road, go ride off road.
Yeah.
And from our lineup, that's actually really the beauty of pairing a Bosch Performance Line powertrain to all of our bikes. Just pick what flavor you want. Do you want drop bars because you like riding in this aggressive position? Do you want a step-through frame because you need ease of getting on and off the bike? Do you want something that can also take you to work as well as do Catalina? Doesn't matter. Everyone grab your bike. Let's go hit Catalina. They're all running the same Performance Line powertrain. They're all running giant batteries with tunable Performance Line Bosch motors. How do you want it to feel? It's just a bicycle. It just happens to help you ride. So you can go as far down that rabbit hole as you want, or you can just say, this one fits me, and pedal it like a regular bike. That's what I do. Turn it on, put it the assistance level I want, go ride the bike, have the experience I left the house to go to. There's no wrong way to do it. What flavor do you want? What riding position do you prefer? Do you have most of our riders I find are like on the edge of a coin. Oh, I want to ride to work. Oh, I want to ride on trails. Okay, cool. So do both. It's just how are you going to build it a little bit one way or the other to support you and your personalized riding experience. You shouldn't have to be limited on your choices because it only fits this tire or it only comes with this motor or something. What kind of riding experience do you want to have? Purchase your e-bike just like you would any other bicycle. Ride it just the same way.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that definitely struggle with that, when and I am like one of the worst people to talk to because my advice is like buy one of everything. Like, but they'll be like, "No, I just want one bike. What should I get?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you want to do?" Like you said,
Yeah.
like, do you want to go to work? Do you want to get in shape? Do you want to like ride in the dirt? If you want to ride in the dirt, how do you want to ride in the dirt? You just want to ride like on roads or like gravel roads, or do you want to like go do rampage, like what's in your mind? And
that's a really great way to start the conversation. And that's a benefit of going into your local bike shop too, is that you don't know how this conversation needs to go because you don't have this bike. You have no idea, but you want to. That's why you're there.
Yeah.
So let this individual who rides bikes, who speaks the language, who's going to touch your bike, help you along this journey. Like, think out loud with this person. These people can be trusted. They know what they're talking about. They live and breathe it just like you intend to. Yeah. So being able to say, I'm going to get this bike and still feel open and comfortable to grow into a rider who you don't know yet should be accessible to everyone. And it might suck later saying, oh, I got this because the motor's lighter, or you don't know what you don't know. Set yourself up for success by being open to the riding situations you might get yourself into.
Yeah. If somebody's in an area where they don't have a Bulls dealer nearby them, is there like a phone number on the website where people can call and talk to like a bike guru, or how's that work?
Brandon, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. We have a dealer locator on bullsbikesusa.com. That is the first place to start. Likely you will find a dealer in your area. Okay. Like Rob said, we don't have a million. We don't and strive to have a million. Quality in a nice blanketed reach. So more than likely you'll find a dealer in your area. If you don't, call the phone number that's right next to it. And in all honesty, me or Rob might answer the phone. And we're going to go through with you to figure out what is the best solution for you. And both Rob and I have on many occasions called dealers who are not our dealer, set up this experience for a rider, made the sale. Both the dealer and the rider are happy. No doubt we're happy. And heck, maybe we got a new dealer in our dealer locator. Yeah. So I would just say, go on bullsbikesusa.com, go to our Instagram, go to our whatever your preferred method of information is. We have a ton of awesome educational videos for both staff and the riding community on our YouTube. Decide if you think a Bulls and Bosch pairing is something that's right for you. Go on the website, bullsbikesusa.com, dealer locator. Either you're done and it's time to go to the local bike shop, or you call us and say, I need a local Bulls dealer. Then we take it from there and get you on the bike.
So you were saying earlier, you guys doing a lot of different events. I assume you guys are hitting all the major like mountain biking ones. You did Sea Otter. Are you guys going to Bentonville, or?
We were at Bentonville last year, and our local retailer got taken out by the tornado.
I was in Bentonville last year too. That was my first time going. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go back.
It's a good event, and Bentonville has created quite a bike culture, and I give them tons of credit. We won't be there this year as a brand. Our retailer is still waffling on whether he wants to go. If he's there, I'll have some of our bikes. And we do a lot of events. Most of our events are local events through a local dealer. Sea Otter really is the big show for us in terms of consumer events. That's where we have, the biggest presence. We have the biggest demo fleet. We do the most in that environment. We're, again, a pretty small company, so we don't have a budget to go to just every mountain bike event.
So those events that you're having with your dealers, is that accessible like a calendar from your Bulls USA website?
That it's an interesting thing. We've talked about trying to incorporate local events, and we're working on it. Today the answer is no. Today the answer is our local dealers will say, I want to do an event. and we'll help them promote the event, and we'll supply some support for the event.
Got it.
But we don't then take that and promote it nationally.
Got it.
We're not quite there, but it's something that we definitely have our eyes on.
Yeah. Right on. I mean, I would imagine Bentonville is really a good market for your bikes.
Our dealer sells a lot of bikes in that market. Yes.
Yeah, because like what you guys are offering really falls into a
Yep.
lot of that community, just being so interconnected. And I mean, another like it's like a Davis where a lot of people already cycle. There's
That's right.
very good infrastructure for cycling and
Yep.
getting around town. So
Yep.
and not everybody wants to go like, huck the jumps, so
Exactly.
there's
Exactly.
definitely like a lot you guys are offering on your site that fits that, as well as, hey, they have a good experience with that, and they want to buy their kid a bike, or their husband wants to maybe go out there and try, or their wife or whatever wants to go out there and try hucking the jumps. Then you got that too. So
That's right.
that's
Yeah.
yeah. No, it definitely seems like a good offering. I really, because of my own personal bias, like I always am looking at that, the high end, more boutique kind of stuff. And I've been telling myself more and more lately that I really need to like pay more attention to the rest of the spread, because it really is important. And, I want to like make good content for everybody, and not just like a small group of people that, has deep pockets, so I really appreciate you guys taking the time to sit down and talk to me about everything that you got going on over there at Bulls.
Well, thank you for having us. It was great spending some time with you, and we hope we gave some decent information to your listeners. And go out and get a bike and ride it. That's the key.
Yeah. Right. I always like to ask people at the end of the show what kind of YouTube channels they like to watch, whether it has to do with biking or not. So I'm gonna put you guys on the spot. If you don't watch YouTube, it is what it is. But let's see. What do you got, Rob? You already said your buddy Trent Sigurd.
Well, that's
Siggard?
Brandon's guy. That's Brandon's guy.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm going to confess that I'm a little older, and as a result, YouTube is not as ingrained in me as it is in my grandsons.
Yeah.
I tend to watch either a couple of cycling channels that I've been watching for quite some time that I'd rather not plug here, or some car type stuff, because I do like cars. And I
Yeah.
just got an EV, so I'm getting more and more into EV stuff. So yeah,
Oh,
that's the
nice. There
extent
you
of
go.
my YouTube
What
YouTube
EV
watching.
did you get?
I'd rather not say in the current political environment.
Yeah, there you go. That means
I bought it before I realized that before the individual who shall remain nameless became so outspoken. He was merely annoying at that point. I'm getting
How
a
about
little
you,
political.
Brandon?
Sorry.
Oh, it's all right.
Yeah, Trent is an awesome YouTube channel. Another one of our writers, John Peters, is awesome. He is an incredible woodworker. But personally speaking, my favorite YouTube channel right now is Crime Pays But Botany Doesn't.
Ooh.
And it is a down and dirty natural history and botany specific one-man show. I think dude's from Philly, and he comes with all the amazing attitude and accent, and he travels around the world and shows you all this crazy stuff about plants, all the reasons that you get out and ride a bike. Crime pays, but botany doesn't. Maybe not children friendly, only because of his language. Otherwise, the subject matter is awesome.
No, that's super awesome. I always like when people come up with something like that, where it's like there's so much content out there, and so many amazing channels and creators that it's really fun to like catch those little diamonds. And everybody has something that they watch that maybe isn't what you would expect or something like that. And so those ones are always really fun. Just so I know that I'm or that we know that we're pitching your buddy's cycling channel. It's Trent Siggard.
Yes, Trent Sigurd.
Yes.
That's the homie. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I pulled him up. Yeah, I'm gonna reach out to him too.
Yeah,
It
if
looks
you
like
like bikes or like drones or any filmmaking, he's a really good source. One of my favorite projects he did is he is putting together a proposal for the state of California to make the LA or the California Aqueduct a cycling path. And he made an awesome documentary about that. And I would suggest everyone watch it. There's a lot of accessible cycling places that could show us a lot of our local history that are available. That
would be
needs some
sick.
voices to talk to our government to make it happen.
Yeah, and that's like, I mean, most of the infrastructure is already there. It's just a matter of opening it up.
Yeah,
So,
check it out. Trent does some really cool stuff. He's also the one that created the very first e-bike packing route through ebikepacking.com, riding one of our bikes of the island of Catalina. He's a cool creator.
there you go. Well, you guys should definitely check that out. But while you're on the internet, check out Bull Bikes USA and check out the bikes that we've been talking about. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Honestly, all of you that are listening, as well as those of you that are sitting here with me on the show right now. It's always fun doing the show, and it's such a great time having good guests that conversation flows easily. So if you want to take one thing away from this and you don't want to pay for it, just remember it only takes a bike to be a biker. So get out and be one.
Thank you so much.